Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing well. In this video I will show you how to make an OP Arc build for Warlocks, Titans and Hunters using the new Arc subclasses as well as the new exotic fusion rifle. The theme of these builds will be to create elemental wells to fuel your abilities without the use of armor mods. Let's get right into it. For this we will be using the Delicate Tomb exotic fusion rifle, which comes with a season pass but isn't required. It just makes it OP with arc builds, but any arc weapon in a special slot will do. What this weapon does is it creates ionic traces, which are essential for this build. Ionic traces are essentially arc elemental wells that fuel your abilities, but I will explain that more later. First off, the new season has brought something known as Amplified. Whilst you are amplified, you are faster, both in terms of movement speed and in terms of your weapon handling. On top of this, you are more agile, allowing you to slide further. You do not need any specific aspects or fragments to become amplified, which is completely different from the other subclasses. By default, all arc classes become amplified after rapidly defeating targets with any arc damage, including weapons. Now, what you want to do is to combine this with aspects, fragments, and arc weapons. Before we start, we need to cover one more thing. To make the builds work, you will need to use something known as ionic traces. If you are a Warlock main, you will be familiar with this. As of the new season, all arc classes will have it. It is basically an arc elemental well that automatically tracks to you when you get close, adding ability energy. This will allow you to keep getting your abilities back quicker, including your super, so the whole purpose is to make as many as possible. Ionic traces can be made by defeating targets with arc, however Warlocks can make extra. Now let's start with the aspects for all three characters, beginning with a Warlock. For Warlocks, what you want for aspects is Electrostatic Mind. Defeating targets with arc abilities or defeating jolted or blinded targets creates an ionic trace. The second is Lightning Surge. While sliding, activate your charged melee ability to blink forward, creating lightning strikes that jolt targets. By defeating targets that are jolted, you will create additional ionic traces. Jolting is another term that you want to become familiar with. However, if you are like me and you love your Arc Soul, you can replace lightning strikes with Arc Soul. It doesn't make too much of a difference. For Hunters, you can equip your Disorienting Blow for your melee to become amplified. For aspects, have a Tempest Strike. Sliding forward and activating your melee creates lightning that jolts enemies. For the second aspect, it really doesn't matter. Since you'll be creating Jolt, you might as well go with Lethal Current to blind jolted enemies that you will be using your melee on. For Titans, you want Touch of Thunder. It boosts 4 grenades. The two you want to use are either Lightning Grenade that jolts enemies or Pulse Grenade that creates ionic traces as it damages enemies. The purpose is to create ionic traces, so I suggest going with a Pulse Grenade. The second aspect is Knockout. Defeating targets with your melee creates health regen and makes you amplified. This will be useful when you are surrounded or simply like to punch stuff. You could also go with a Juggernaut aspect, which creates a shield around you whilst you sprint with full ability energy. Once the shield breaks, it drains your ability energy, so it's up to you. If you feel like you are creating enough wells, then go for it. Moving on to fragments. Fragments are universal amongst all characters. In the first slot, go with a Spark of Beacons. Whilst amplified, your arc special weapon Final Blows create a blinding explosion. This really makes short work of the adds when combined with Delicate Tomb fusion rifle. The second fragment is Spark of Discharge, which increases the amount of ionic traces you can make with your arc weapons. I recommend you have these two to make your subclasses work. The last two are completely optional. I personally have Spark of Vaults, which makes you amplified upon doing a finisher, and Spark of Resistance, which decreases incoming damage when surrounded by enemies. If you want, you could replace these with Spark of Shock, which causes arc grenades to jolt enemies, and killing those enemies creates ionic traces. The second one you could use is Spark of Magnitude, which buffs the duration of 3 of your grenades. Unfortunately, we do not have all the fragments unlocked yet, so the ones to look out for the future are Spark of Ions, which creates additional ionic traces when defeating jolted targets, and Spark of Brilliance, which creates a blinding explosion when defeating a blinded target with precision damage. Finally, Exotic Armor. For Warlocks, Crown of Tempest is my favorite to use and the best Warlock exotic for the Arc subclasses, at least in my opinion. Each time you use an ability, it fuels the other abilities like the Titan's Heart of Inmost light chest armor. In this case, using an arc ability or killing a jolted enemy increases the recharge rate of all your arc abilities. Not to mention, it extends the duration of your Emperor Palpatine super, giving you almost unlimited power. You can see just how effective this exotic is. There is a new exotic helmet for the Warlock called Fallen SUNSTAR, which makes the Ionic Traces move faster towards you and gives nearby allies ability energy when you collect Ionic Traces. If you want, look out for it in Lost Sectors offering exotic headgear. For your Hunter, I suggest running the RAIDEN FLUX as it buffs your arc staff like the Crown of Tempest buffs Stormtrance. Equally, you could also run RAIJU'S harness, but it is up to you. For Titans, of course you want to be looking into things like Curse of a Falling Star for Thunder Crash, as it increases the damage and gives you an overshield after the missile strikes. However, Heart of Inmost Light also works extremely well, as it buffs all your abilities, and combined with Ionic Traces makes it so much more effective. So let's put this into practice. Now remember, I'm not using any well mods or armor mods to buff this subclass. This is purely from the subclass itself. And again, you do not need this specific fusion rifle. Any arc weapon in a special slot will do. As you can see, I am decimating enemies left, right and center. Arc Soul is murdering everything, and I am making Ionic Traces everywhere. If you have found the video helpful, then please like, share and post a comment. Don't forget to subscribe to not miss out on more Destiny 2 guides. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time.